Hello, everybody. Welcome to CONSERVATISH episode 102. My name is Peter Feliciano. No video today, and just our lovely voices. And our guest today is Pollo Del Mar.
Hello, Peter. How are you?
I am really, really good. You have been one of the most popular episodes.
Really?
People love your episode. People love you.
Oh, well, thank you. I had no idea. I was like, I didn't know how that would go over, but it was a good time when we recorded.
Yeah, and it was that was back in the days where every episode of mine was like 2.5 hours, and I didn't know. I think you were on episode 3. And
Yes.
since then, I've become such a seasoned professional. Now it's like, it's
Just
like
2 hours
water.
and 15 minutes.
Yes. I can't stop fucking ranting. It's a thing.
That makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, when I listen back to stuff, I'm like, oh, I'm talking about that again. Oh, I'm talking about that again. Or I say these same things over and over. Has that been your experience with podcasting as well?
I think that part of what that says to the listener, I mean, if you're being super repetitive and that just is redundant, but I think that part of the experience of the listener is that they start to know your point of view. And when you touch on the same subject matter, as long as you're consistent in what you're saying, they're like, oh, this person's being really authentic. This is genuinely how they feel. This is what's really going on. So
Right. They get to know your personality.
absolutely. And they know, like on Family Guy when he's like, you know what really grinds my gears? So it's that same thing. Like it's, if he were to change up what he was saying, that would probably be disconcerting. But once you have established your point of view and they are accustomed to it, then they're like, oh shit,
Here he goes again.
here he goes again. Somebody fucked up and brought that up.
Right. I've tried to differentiate. I've tried to have every type of person on the show, but sometimes I think the grooves. I do get into some grooves, but I do like that. I have people who disagree with me wildly, who listen every week, or because I think, and I don't know if this is the same for you or what your opinion on it is, but once somebody gets sold on you as an artist, they're kind of down for whatever you're going to do.
Yeah, I think that's what it means to really support somebody. I think that, that's, for example, when it comes to musicians, there are times when I will be a fan of an artist and I'm sort of like along for the ride, right? It's a journey. It's a musical journey for that individual. It's a musical journey for the audience. And I think that there's something to be said for that. And then I think that there's times when I don't give a shit about the artist, but I like a song that they do, or I like, whatever it is, like there's something about them that I like. And maybe that will buy them the opportunity for me to return to them in the future and check other things out.
Right.
But I'm not ride or die. I'm not hardcore about it.
Right. One of those people is Pink, right?
Pink, yeah, I'm ride or die for Pink.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely ride or die for Pink.
When did that start, do you feel?
Was
Was it that 90s, like right at the end of the 90s?
I don't know.
thing?
It wasn't, because maybe it was like early 2000s, because when Pink first came out, Pink's first album, she was a product very much, and she was intended to be like the white alternative to TLC. And like sound quality wise, that first album is like, you can hear that TLC stamp to it. And then it wasn't until she came out with later albums where she actually really verbally berated that image that they created for her, that I was like, oh, now I can really buy into this. Because I didn't know how I felt about her as an artist. I thought that the music was good, but in terms of being interested in her as a person, I wasn't. It wasn't until she started to really kind of personalize her lyrics. I mean, that first album is like all about the typical shit, like men and money and like I got a hot ride and whatever. And
Christina Aguilera.
Well, I mean, maybe, but Christina Aguilera, I think, was more emotional. I think that she was really going for that kind of like that hip hop bravado that happens.
Okay.
And because that's what she was crafted to be. And then later on, she started talking about insecurities and, don't let me get me and all of those things, where she kind of talked about how she self-destructs at times, and that made her more relatable to me as an artist. And so at that point, that was like my jumping on board. And then she lost me for a hot second, just because I was I was lost on my own right at that point. But then later on, as she continued to evolve, I just really liked everything she's done. And she is an artist who I think, as she has progressed, has not put aside the idea of still being pop accessible. But I think that she makes decisions where she includes music on her albums or whatever, that she's fully aware like will never hit a radio station,
Right.
and she doesn't care because it's about the message.
Right. It's a difficult thing to do. I worked really hard on the album. Oh, by the way, everybody, go buy my album.
Go buy his album.
It's on iTunes. It's on Spotify. It's on CD Baby. It's everywhere.
Stream his album repeatedly, because eventually, like, that actually makes more money than album purchases. So
Really?
yeah, ultimately, yeah. I mean, unless you have a good situation where you're getting a good cut. I mean, if they're buying an album from you, then you get 100%. But
Right.
when you go through, I don't know what your situation is like, but most of the time, album sales or single sales, not so great. Streaming, it adds up, and eventually you'll get a little check for that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm set up to. I think the songs will be officially on ASCAP registered in 3 weeks, and then they won't start. I won't start to get checks for those for another 9 months or so. So that's the way it works. But yeah, I tried to be weird and accessible, and luckily, I think honestly the album was perfect in timing, and I've got a long way to go. But if I had done it 5 years ago or even 3 years ago, I would have just pushed for
Radio
too much
accessibility, or
no, the other way.
Oh,
I would have because I'm like, oh, I'm so weird and I'm so eccentric. I'm just gonna be all into the look at how weird in my message, and a lot more angry. And I've cooled down personality wise. I'm still snarky and whatever, but I realized, like, I was showing a video. That video, but a different version to my ex Lizzie, who's a musician as well, Lizzie Carr. Look her up; she's really, really great. And I wanted
is she
her.
hot? Like that?
Yes, she is.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, you can be great and all, but is she hot? Let's just cut to the
Well, we don't
chase.
date anymore, but yes, she's a good-looking girl.
Way to go, Lizzie.
Way to go.
You keep it together, girl.
And she put up with me. God bless her.
Bless your heart, Lizzie. Bless your heart.
So I showed it to her, and she was like, "Yeah, it's a little right on the nose, like every single lyric, because that's why you got haters. Every single lyric is like, there are a lot of lyrics in there where I'm like, fuck you, and and it's on point, and I like the message of that. But I was too much in the first couple drafts where it was like every single shot was me, flipping off the camera type of shit. Where it's like, okay, cool back, maybe let the lyrics speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Let it be accessible to people. Otherwise, I would have a tendency to pigeonhole myself,
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, again, that I frequently will respect and appreciate about artists who are willing to take risks, whether that's lyrical risks, and that can be a risk lyrically, can be something that won't be pop accessible, or it can just be message wise. They're
Right.
definitely taking a stand, and I think that's really important. I do think that's important. I think it speaks to the quality of an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And then other times I'm just a fan of somebody's voice so much, And Pink is fortunate because she is an amazing performer live. She's an amazing musician. She's got an incredible tool, meaning her voice is
Right.
absurd.
Right.
The quality of her vocals are insane, and I think that she's willing to take those risks. I think that she understands where she's at in her life right now. I think she understands where she's at in terms of pop radio, and I love her. I mean, she's one of many artists that I love like that, but quite often, when it comes to other artists, if they're not making those message type songs or what have you, it's just about the quality of their voice. I can really just love somebody's voice and want to listen to that.
What's an example of that for you? Like Adele, or
Actually, I do love Adele's voice. I also, even though she's the ultimate, I mean, what I would say in observation of Adele is that you cannot get more mainstream
Right.
than Adele, but she is simultaneously rubbing against the grain of what radio also is. I mean, I think that when she came out, I think she was a lot riskier than she would be considered now. And the reason I say that is because she's a large woman. She is doing mostly ballads. Like she could be compared to this generation's version of how Celine Dion, for example, was perceived. And I think that it was kind of just a perfect storm for her as an artist that she was able to gain that kind of mainstream accessibility, because the unfortunate reality that pop music faces is that, number one, women find it exceedingly difficult to find a place on pop radio because it's mostly dominated by men. And then secondarily, if you're not doing something that would be considered R&B or hip hop, you are almost persona non grata at radio. And when you are someone like her who physically doesn't match what they're looking for in terms of marketability, and then you're releasing things like Somebody Like You, which is a full on nothing but her voice and a piano ballad, that does not immediately spell radio success, you know? So I wouldn't say that. I mean, she's somebody I definitely love. I appreciate what she's about. And I think that I was so scared. She got married and I was like, oh my God, she's ruined. She's had a baby, which is also like another one when women are like, I'm so happy because I had a baby.
Right.
Your music career is over. Get over it, girl. Like, just move on. You're done.
Because the drive leaves?
Just because become a full-time. Because nobody wants to hear about your fucking baby.
Yeah,
like,
true.
I don't want to see that shit on Facebook, much less on my radio. Like, great, you had a baby. That's adorable. I'm good. It's good that your womb works, bitch. But right. You know, no, but I think that that's a big part of it. People don't want to hear about happy. People like go on radio and listen for a happy song. It's like 1 in 10. Everybody wants to hear about I'm fucked up. You fucked me over. You did me wrong. So I'm glad she got a divorce, because that means, like, you know, as soon as she got that divorce, y'all, what did she say? I'm working on a new album. Of course you are, bitch, because you're unhappy. Right. Like, you have to channel that anger somewhere. Right. So when it comes to like people whose just voices I love, a lot of those tend to be not mainstream pop artists. There's a lot of dance music artists, for example, that I love, because dance music is a scenario where you're listening in an environment where you're not getting visuals most of the time. And so it's just about either lyrical content or vocal content. And, you know, I could name probably dozens of songs that people who go to gay nightclubs, for example, would know the song, but they have no idea what that person looks like.
Robin S., maybe.
I mean, Robin S. is one who everybody in the whole world actually knows her song. She had one song, y'all, and there's been a remix of it every 3 years. Yes. Good for her. Like, that's brilliant. And you know what? The funny thing is, you mentioned her because I remember interviewing her a number of years ago, and she said,
"You interviewed her?"
Oh yeah, of course.
That's
awesome. I performed on a show with her,
and
afterwards we did a little interview, and I asked her what, you know, her biggest frustration about her career is. And you know, I think that it was her spin on the idea that she's a one-hit wonder, but it was really that she wishes her audiences would allow her to continue to grow as an artist. And I think that there's some element of that is simply that they just want, it's like, shut up and sing Show Me Love,
right?
You know, and that's an artist who people would never know what she looks like.
Right.
And so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of people that she's got an incredibly powerful voice. Another artist that I absolutely love, and I can't believe it, like, I'm actually signed to the same record label she is now. And her name is Amuka. Her real name is Sheila Brody, and she's charted songs under both of those names. And she started out years ago in the 70s singing backup as one of the Funkettes for George Clinton and the Funkettes. Wow. You know? And so she's come, and she's this just incredible vocalist, and stylistically and, you know, physically, she is not something that would capture any young audience's attention. Right. She's also like probably 60 now, you know, or something. Right. So, you know, the best that she's going to get from audiences today is like, ooh, look at grandma working it out, you know. Right. But she's got such a powerful voice. Right. And if she ever listens to this, I hope she actually follows up. I wrote an entire song for her like 3 years ago, and it's just sitting because I could offer it to other people whose voice I also love, but it was written for her. I want her. Right. And so you know, so there's a lot of people in that genre that I love. Like, I just love their voice, right. You know, or there's other people who I love the kind of production that they do in terms of their musical production. Okay. And, but I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan. Like, and a current example of that would be Todrick Hall, who a lot of people know him because he's Taylor Swift's best friend, and he choreographed for Taylor Swift, and he's taken a lot of heat for that. People know him because he's on RuPaul's Drag Race, but he is an incredible musical artist in his own right. Right. And what I would say, the frustration for me is, like, he's this incredible musical artist in his own right, and yet now he's in drag in pretty much every video, and I do not understand the need for that. Okay. But
do you feel like it's inauthentic?
I don't think it's inauthentic. I just think that, I mean, most drag artists, I think, if they had the opportunity to do what he does, first of all, most drag artists, if they had the voice that he has, probably wouldn't hide behind the drag. Okay. The drag is definitely a gimmick for all of us. It makes us special or unique or different in a way that we probably don't feel outside of that.
Right.
But in his case, he's an established person who is very talented, and now he's doing drag and video. I'm like, leave that, like, at least not capitalize on that. Let us, some of the other bitches, do just that, because that's the only thing we got going. And like, you just use your incredible voice. But what I love about him is I really believe that he has a strong hand in not only the aesthetics of his music videos, which are incredible, but I also think that he has a real pulse on what is great for music. I think musically he's really great.
What hit that fucking track he did with RuPaul? My God. I listened to it again a few months ago. It's just a fucking, every time I listen to it, I have to watch the video like 3 or 4 times.
Wait, which track are you talking about?
I'm talking about the Wizard of Oz one.
Oh yeah. So he's done a number of tracks with RuPaul.
Oh really?
And yeah, and I think actually, honestly, I'm guessing that he probably does. So, like, whatever RuPaul's releasing, I'm sure he probably has a real strong hand in it.
Okay.
Because I don't think that Ru has. My guess would be that she doesn't have that kind of vision necessarily for, or just honestly at this point in her career, being this mega star. I don't think she has the ability or time to have her pulse, finger on the pulse of what she wants to release.
Right.
And that's why a lot of her stuff that she's released more recently, I would think you could easily slot it into that.
Right.
Sounds like
and then maybe she's great at being in someone else's vehicle. So like, as an example, what's another example of that is maybe not so much Beyonce, but Beyonce doesn't necessarily write but she gets a good amount of people behind her and near her, and then create something with that. So maybe RuPaul's like that.
Yeah, I think that RuPaul from the beginning has the RuPaul that people know, I think, has been always a manifestation of somebody else's vision.
Okay.
Because RuPaul literally went from doing what I would consider street walking hooker drag to being the supermodel of the world in like a year. If you look, back in 1991 when Supermodel hit, if you look at any photos of her from a year before, she was not that. And the person that she paired up with then was Matthew Anderson, who was her longtime stylist, her longtime makeup artist. Rumors have it they had a massive falling out a few years ago, but I think that she is somebody who was very wise about that. She had, in a very small way, I would relate what RuPaul had going on at that time to kind of what my situation is currently with this like little record deal that I cut, and they did not want to sign me because I'm like this wildly talented musician. They certainly didn't want to hire me or bring me on board because I have an incredible voice. Neither of those are true. What they were very expressly upfront about was that they like the overall image. The overall image, the entire package becomes marketable and easy for them to promote. Right. And so with RuPaul, like when you get somebody who is like she is, who especially at the beginning of her career was so passable in terms of her physical look in photos, and then she's actually a 6'5" or whatever black man who, when properly done up in makeup, when properly done up in costumes, really can sell you the fantasy of supermodel of the world. That is something that at the time was unheard of. I mean, remember, this was 30 years ago, right? Almost 30 years ago. And now drag is so commonplace that nobody thinks twice about it necessarily. But at that time, she was a cultural phenomenon.
I wasn't plugged in then. I was, I was still a young boy. I wasn't. How much flack did she ever talk about? I've never heard in interviews where she faced a lot of like hate.
I don't know that she ever got hate, because I think that what she benefited from was that she was a cultural anomaly. Okay. And I think that she benefited from the fact that she was extremely gorgeous. And I think that she benefited from the fact that when people saw her, there was legitimate questions about whether or not she was an actual woman. Right. And I think that all of those things made her just unbelievably marketable, you know. And I think that, of course, like that's not downplaying the fact that Supermodel is also it's a classic and iconic track, right?
Absolutely.
But there's all of that, and then, you know, I wouldn't know. I don't know. I wasn't even out at that time as a gay man myself, and it was years before I ever thought about doing drag. But I remember her making the rounds on talk shows and, you know, people talking to her. I do also remember that people asked if she was gay, and I remember they hemmed and hawed about that, because it was one thing for, you know, apparently him to look like the supermodel of the world, but to be open about being gay, that's unheard of. You know, I don't know. I don't understand that either. I'm like, she's in a fucking dress. Like, just, you know, let it speak for itself.
Right.
But, and then she went from that to, she had her own talk show for a little while and on VH1, and she, you know, she did the rounds, and this is when you would not ever see her, never ever see her not in drag. Right. So, and then I think what happened is ultimately she progressed, and when she started taking acting gigs, and so people became more familiar with her outside of drag. You know, she was in the Brady Bunch movie, and she was out of drag, and she was in
she
But
got
I'm
famous
a cheerleader.
friends, you know, David Spade, I think, or there was a picture of her with Nirvana, like that. She did MTV rounds. She got clout through that. You know, it wasn't just her passability.
Yeah, like and then once she did that, then I think that once the music, I mean, she was consistently churning out mad hits on the dance charts and in the gay community and gay clubs for a number of years, but her star in terms of mainstream popularity started to fade. So she started doing things that didn't require the drag, that allowed her to branch out. And then once, like a little bit later in her career, I think that the appeal for her was that she didn't have to do all that. I mean, listeners, there's a lot that goes into looking like that, and to, you know, spend hours getting ready for something and, you know, have your entire livelihood based on that. It's not like you can wake up late for work one day, you know? And so when she had the opportunity to become a persona and personality in and out of drag, that just, I think that's why you will never, ever, ever see her just randomly out and about in drag. She doesn't have to, and that's, God bless her, because that is the ultimate that anyone wants. I mean, I would love that.
Going back to Todrick, maybe that's not an inauthenticness, but maybe it's part of your frustration. Like, hey, you have all these other facets, and you're only focusing on one. Do you feel like he's trying to capitalize?
I don't think that. I don't know. I just like, so just to put it in perspective, like back before Todrick was super successful, he and I were connected on social media, and we were actually very flirty because I think he's so cute. But he's also like 3 feet tall.
Really?
We met up. We were gonna like meet up for drinks one day. He was in San Francisco, and we met up for drinks. And he's so cute. And then I walked in, and he was like, to my nipples. I was like, oh Jesus fuck. Well, that's ruined. I can't. But you know, but the fact is that he's always been really immersed in the queer culture. He's been very open about himself and from go. And I don't think that there's anything really inauthentic about it. What I would say is that, like I said, I think that for so many of us, drag is a crutch. It's a vehicle that we need, because I can, well, just bringing it back to myself for a second, I would not be signed to a record label without drag. Right. There's just no way, because that's the package that is marketable. The person I am behind all of the makeup is equally marketable in some ways, because the persona is based on my personality, and that has to be able to come through. And in or out of drag, I have the ability to connect with audiences. And as you were saying earlier about your podcast, where people, once they've signed on to support you, they're good to go. Right. That is my following. I have for having never been more than what I am, like, and for never having been on television, for having never been on a reality TV show, for never having like a ridiculously successful song, whatever, for just being a self-made local or regional drag personality, I have an audience and fan base that I wouldn't trade for anybody else's, because they are here for me, and they love me, they appreciate me, and part of that is because I respect them and appreciate them in return. And so there, for example, my Facebook following, kind of grew exponentially. I was doing Facebook Live videos, and some of those were me putting on makeup, and people loved that process of the makeup.
Absolutely.
But the other side of that was that they, during the course of the 2 hours and whatever I'm doing makeup, I was just talking to them like they were my friends, and they literally felt like they were getting to know me. And the thing that I loved about that situation most was that from those interactions, people who were interested in me began to connect with each other. And there would be people who would see each other regularly in those chats. And then next thing you know, they're asking each other about their kids or their dog or whatever the situation. How's your situation at work? And it built a community around me. And it's not a huge network, but it was very personal to me. And I was that central hub of that.
Right.
And that made me super happy, because I think that one of the things I love most about what I do is the sense of community and bringing people together.
Right.
That Pollo Del Mar can do that I, outside of that persona, don't necessarily have the ability to do. And so as a result of that, for having the following that I do, I'm super happy about it, because one of the things ultimately, and not to make it sound like every person that follows you is a dollar sign, but when you have a following and you're doing your art and you want it to be a career, you have to be able to monetize that in some way.
Yeah.
So for me, that can look like a lot of things. Like, when I do my new makeup video and put it on YouTube, I want my following to go and watch it, because after like whatever, I'll make 3 cents, like, thank you guys for watching my, like, whatever. I made 4 cents from you last month. I appreciate you. Or like, if I do release music, I would like them to want to purchase a copy of the album like you do, or I want them to download or stream it or whatever. Or I just want them to actually just be like, I want more of you, because that makes somebody want to invest in me.
Exactly.
That's important.
Do you feel, because I'm that type of artist too, where I kind of like the accessibility. I always mention Trent Reznor in this because I love Trent Reznor, but he says, even when he's on stage, he says 2 fucking words that aren't in a song. He says, "Thank you, Milwaukee. We'll see you guys next year," or whatever the hell. It's never a personal, the veil never drops. And that's a type of artist. I don't like that. And that's part of this podcast, this whole thing. And I didn't really know it before going into it, but I wanted more accessibility for the people. Like, I wanted to be able, not just for my own freedom, so I didn't have to be cornered in a verse or a song is all I believe about this one subject. You know what I mean? Or this is the only story. I have 9 songs on the album, 9 stories. That's it. I wanted to be able to tell a shit ton. I wanted to be able to have that accessibility. So it seems like you're that type of same person. You have that podcast of yours. You have this. You have a bunch of stuff.
I haven't recorded that podcast in so long, y'all. I mean, I plan to circle back to it. I've just got too many creative interests, and
right.
Fucking too few hours in the day to do too many projects.
Right.
But yeah.
But so in that, have you felt, even though you're getting this great base, do you feel, or are you afraid of feeling too accessible? Has there been points where people feel like they have too much access to you, where you feel like, I can't get the fuck away from these people?
So I think that part of it is just who I am at my base, that I haven't allowed for that, because I'm very accessible, and at the same time I have no problem. And my audiences sometimes really wish that I was more accessible, because they're like, you haven't posted on Facebook in like 5 days.
Right.
You haven't done a Facebook Live in 3 weeks.
Right.
So, and I understand what they're saying, and I'm glad that they want more of me, because it's certainly better than the alternative where they're like, you post too much. And I hate those people too, by the way, y'all. But I will say this, like, so for people who have followed me for a long time, I've had so many iterations. And an acquaintance of mine was saying to me today, "Oh my God, so-and-so was telling me you're a writer too. So-and-so was telling me you do this." So going back to what I was saying about the podcast, I have a million irons in the fire. I have too much creativity. I have too many things I love and am passionate about. And what happens is I cycle through them. So like, I'll go hard and heavy. Like 3 months ago, I churned out 200 pages of this book that I want to have out next year. And then that got put on hold. The book got put on hold because this music thing suddenly started to happen. And then the music thing is going. And my goal for that, because music is a lot different, music is stuff that you can put into the, like, get done and then filter them out one by one, where I actually don't have to do shit with that, because other people take up the lead on that.
Right.
But there was a period of time early-ish in my drag career where I was a columnist for the San Francisco Bay Times, which is a weekly LGBTQ newspaper. And initially, when I started that column, it was intended to be a socialite column. Like, basically, braggadocio, like, I went to these fabulous parties. Don't
Right.
you wish that you could go to fabulous
Right.
parties like I do?
Right.
Look at these fierce people I was with. Look how
Right.
pretty I am.
Right.
And that's what they wanted, because they wanted, like, people love to name drop, and people you know, when there's like elements of gossip involved and about people that yeah, I don't know, like that they are not part of their day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
And for the listeners out there, I have to tell you that one of the things that drove me nuts about that, or made me so crazy about that concept for that album, or that column originally, was that I forget that people do not, I mean, I don't want to put myself like on some kind of a pedestal, but I forget that normal people, average everyday people, don't necessarily have access to the shit that I have access to. I completely forget that, because there's very rare situations where I'm like, holy fuck, how did this happen to me? You know, because it doesn't register. The people that I have grown into this career surrounded by have had these kind of lives, like you know, doing a show with Robin S, or doing a show with like XYZ celebrity, or what, you know. And I've had some when I throw it out there, it sounds like just straight up bragging. And in the moment, it's like crazy. Like, and I'm not talking about Robin S, because girl, she's like one hit wonder, but
Right.
opening for Britney Spears on Good Morning America, that was a
Right.
situation where I nearly shit my pants.
Right.
And when I look back on it, I'm like, normal people don't do that.
No.
Going on a 4-day tour with Lady Gaga, people don't do that, you know? And I don't think, you know, I don't really think about that, because part of it is there's just no time to think about it. When you're on the grind, it's on the grind. It's like, okay, I'm going on a tour with Lady Gaga for 4 club shows. Oh my God, this is fucking amazing. And then you're like, you know, while that's happening, the next thing is lining up, and
Right.
you don't have time to process it.
Right.
So when I was doing that, like, name dropping type of bullshit and socialite column, it was not my favorite. So what happened, and back to the original question, what happened was that ultimately I was like, you guys, I can't relate to this. This is not who I am. Like, can we do it a different way? And since I'd already started building a following with this weekly column, I pitched this, and the thing was called the Glamazon Diaries. So like, it's like my diary, except for they only wanted this like bougie type whatever. So what I morphed it into over a period of time, and then finally was like, by the way, just in case you haven't noticed, this is not what you wanted. It's going to be this, or it's going to be nothing. Is that it became me telling, I would take situations that were kind of like what they were looking for, but I would insert like the backdrop of this really incredible thing that was happening to me, but I would tell the really personal shit that was going on behind the scenes, because one of the things that is frustrating about drag is that it's like being a clown. Like, you're painted up, and like, I look like this, and when I'm in public, I'm smiling and I'm happy and whatever. You don't know that behind the scenes, my boyfriend just dumped me, my fucking rent's 2 months behind, you know, like my dog's throwing up on the carpet, whatever. And so I started telling those stories, and it became quite a social experiment for me, because it was the juxtapositioning of like, look how fabulous we are in this photo. Guess what? I was fucked up that entire night. You know, like, mentally, I was devastated. I left there, took off my eyelashes, and started crying in the car, type of thing. And how that evolved for 2.5 years that was running is that people got really intimate information, and quite frequently I wouldn't change people's names, but I would just give them a nickname. I was in a relationship for a year, and he was referred to as the dancer, because he was a dancer in a Broadway musical, and I toured with him. And so they would know all of these intimate details about our relationship, like the emotional element, not the sex. I'm not going to give that up, bitch. That's like a Just Fans, whatever. Only fans website.
Premium Snapchat.
So exactly. So, but I wouldn't give those things up, but I would tell like these really detailed emotional things. Or when like my relationship, I remember one year I was writing about Christmas, and I talked really detailed about this super personal interaction that I'd had with my dad, and how it had been super meaningful to me, even though it was just flippant to him or whatever. And what would happen, and what going to the heart of that question about, am I too accessible? people I'd never met, who I had no idea who they were, would recognize me, and they would come up to me and they would start to share really intimate shit about themselves because they could relate to what I'd written. Or they would come up to me and be like, I am just so sorry about your breakup. And it's because I had, through my own skill as a writer and my own willingness to be vulnerable and authentic and genuine in what I was presenting to them, they had a firm understanding of me that really only my close friends should have known.
Right.
But I wasn't wise enough or whatever to be guarded about it. I'm not a very guarded person in that way. And I do think that has, again, contributed to my following feeling like they know me in a really deep way. I wrote a couple years ago, like when the Me Too, #MeToo thing had taken off, I shared really publicly my own experience of having been sexually assaulted. And I was like, I want you to know that this doesn't just happen to women. Right. Like it doesn't just happen if you're like stupid and like drink too much or what. I mean, like this can happen to people in situations that they don't have control over. And, and it can play out in other ways. It's not, not to ever discount anybody's personal experience with that, but it was just like one of those things, like this is how it happened to me, and this is how it aided me for 8 or 10 or whatever years, and you know what, because other people have been brave enough to bring this to people's attention, I'm going to share with my story, and I'm like reclaiming that part of myself, because for too long, so I allowed that to sort of guide my thoughts and mentality. So in doing that, people do connect to you on a really deep level.
I remember that post. I read that whole thing. I remember that. That was maybe 2 years ago. It was maybe a year and a half.
Maybe 3. I think it was like a little bit more than that. Yeah. But it was one of those things, like there are details and things that I hold on to because I don't want people to know those. Right. But at the same time, my experience has been in life and in career that the things that we feel shame about, or the things that we feel will cause other people to judge us in a poorly or look down upon us, that's a real risk. It is a risk. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, those people would probably judge anything you do. My friend Matthew Martin, who's an incredible localized actor in the Bay Area, legendary, is an entertainer, said to me one time a number of years ago when we were doing a stage production together, do nothing and they'll say nothing. Meaning if you're absolutely not doing shit, they don't have anything to talk about. But you start living your life and putting yourself out there, they're going to have something to talk about. So my experience has been when I'm vulnerable and authentic and genuine and give them like real snapshots of what's going on with me, more people relate to that than the, oh my God, look how fabulous I am. Right. Because that is very off-putting. It's like living a life as a name dropper, and just going through the world as like the Instagram version of yourself. Right. And people like that stuff and then whatever, but it's when they get to see what's going on behind the scenes that they really feel connected. Right.
Like it's different aspects of people's lives, like lifestyles of the rich and famous. It could serve to scratch that itch. Kardashians can serve to scratch that itch. Big boisterous hip hop artists. Like eventually, you need to talk about something other than look at how much money I have or whatever. There's the stuff that really connects people is like you were saying when Pink started writing about, and I'm not a huge Pink fan. I haven't really listened to very much of her stuff. But when she started writing about, I know, I'm sorry. When she started writing about personal shit. That's what I love about this fucking podcast is like when I talk about that weird shit, that darker shit, other people feel it too. Right. Other people have that experience, that weird little stuff. And when you say something, it not just frees yourself, it also frees them.
Yeah. Well, what I believe is that, we get a lot of societal pressure to act a certain way, to look a certain way, to be a certain way, to present a certain way. And most of us, when we go into our daily life, when we leave the house in the morning time, you acclimate and assimilate to that expectation. I mean, not many of us, and most of us, I would say most of us do not, really give a fuck when you're like, hi, how are you today? God forbid some bitch be like, oh, let me tell you, be like, oh, girl, my shoe's filling up with blood. I gotta go.
Right.
I gotta run. But the fact is, like, we go into daily life and we present. It's the armor that we present, like
stage character.
Exactly, and that's for all of us. If I look good, then I am good. If you perceive me to be good, then I'm good. But the fact remains that behind the scenes for all of us, there's real life happening. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, real life isn't always fucking pretty.
No.
I mean, everybody shits.
Right.
And so what I've kind of learned is to balance the ability to be really public about that stuff. And then still, I consider myself very private public persona.
Right.
Like when I'm in public, one of the things I've understood is that for 10 plus years, the San Francisco LGBTQ community paid my bills, literally, figuratively, and otherwise paid my bills. So I owe them a debt of gratitude. And part of that is that when I go out, most of the time, whether I'm in or out of drag, I'm ready to be whoever that person needs me to be in the moment. And I have a pretty good ability to gauge and judge that based on the interaction. So, but there are times when I'm just like,
I don't want to take a picture.
You're not getting that part of me,
right.
Not right now. But I also, for the listeners, we're sitting in my actual home, which is a travesty. But we're sitting in my home, and the number of people who come and spend time in my home is extremely minimal.
Right.
Other than at Christmas time when my home is open to everyone and dozens of people coming in and out on that particular day. That's the only day of the year that I really open my home to large numbers of people. Usually most of my time spent here is either alone with my dogs or at best like one other person.
Right.
Sometimes like two, but never like, a huge number of people just chilling.
And I appreciate you open the,
it's like, but that's the situation with my friends they are welcome here, but I'm like by San Francisco, y'all, I'm still in the city of San Francisco, but I'm on the outskirts, and some of these bitches act like I might as well live in Wisconsin. Like, what, girl? I have to transfer buses? Right. No, ma'am. Right. I cannot.
Right.
I'm like, get over yourself. But I'm very insulated here, and I have come to be like, that's what I need to like recharge my battery, I think.
Well, Wonder Woman didn't have the Fortress of Solitude. That's Superman.
Yeah,
but
Superman.
That's what this kind of feels like.
Yeah, but she had Paradise Isle, and she
go.
also had an invisible jet, so that bitch could just jet off to anywhere, and nobody could even see her, even though you could totally see through it.
Invisible jet. I forget. Yeah, I've really never really. I've never really watched Wonder Woman. I'm sorry. I apologize.
God, he's striking the fuck out. I'm sorry. Lizzie, no wonder you ditched his ass. Good God. The dick would have to be mighty good to put up with this bullshit.
Well.
And let's be clear here. There's a reason he got dumped. Sorry.
It must be my lack of knowledge about the invisible jet. So another question I had, or as far as one more thing on that point, one of the things I've talked about on the show a lot is the fact that the reason also, there's only like one or two things I won't share with the podcast. I'll keep that just for my spiritual advisors and my friends. But other than that, like I want to be open as possible because I don't want to get quote unquote caught. So one of the things that Patrice O'Neill used to talk about is the reason why Paul Rubens or, whatever, the reason why their careers suffered when or Kramer when he did that awful shit or whatever. The reason why that happened is because they had a character, and the character was bright and shiny. You knew what the character was, and then the mask slipped. Yep. I want that. I want to have a mask in my music. I want to have a mask when I want to have certain people on and just talk hip hop or just talk this or just politics or whatever. But I don't want to have a mask slip moment because I'm too much of a fucking, I say every word. All jokes are, if they're funny, they're good to go. Like I don't want to be caught. Like, did you hear that back in, when they search through the records on this podcast of, Pete, when they try to get me, I don't want to be fucking canceled in the future. You know what I mean? Like, and I know I'm a good person and I know I have my spiritual life and but like, I don't want to get caught in a way. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to set it up from the jump that this is who I am,
Absolutely. And one of the things that how that relates into my personality is that I'll give you an example. So a number of years ago, I held this fundraising title in the community, and at the end of the year, they schedule a roast for that whoever's in that position, and people had the hardest fucking time roasting me because the fact of the matter is I roast myself first.
Yep.
It's like, look, yeah, I shit my pants, okay, bitch. I'm lactose intolerant. I had 2 fucking lattes, and it was a long drive. I didn't expect the fucking traffic, okay? You know what? Get over it. What are you going to say about it, bitch?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's that Eminem from 8 Mile, remember the movie?
Yeah.
Where
and that's exactly, I bring that up to people all the time. Like I remind people of that exact scene because there's so much fucking truth to it.
Right.
Eminem in 8 Mile, at the end, he wins the rap battle because he fucking roasts himself. And then at the end of it, it's like, now what are you going to fucking say? You don't have shit. You don't have any material. There's nothing for you to say because I just told you. And the fact is that that's how I live my life.
Right.
Like, I do skanky shit.
Right.
I do fucking crazy shit. I do, there are things about myself that I will openly admit I don't present to the public. Like with my friends, okay, I have a group text thread that if it ever came out, I would be fucking ruined. I would be ruined. And I'm going to tell you as listeners why. Because I say racist shit in it. I say homophobic shit in it. I say transphobic shit in it.
Right.
I say heterophobic shit in it.
Right.
I talk mad shit about other people in it. I say all this stuff. And the fact is, it's nothing that I would ever say in public, not because I'm ashamed of it, but because of the fact that that is stuff that only translates in context with the conversation. Right. Like, am I a horrible person because I say it? Maybe I am. I don't think so. Maybe I am. But the fact of the matter is, if you take shit that any person who is on this planet out of context, it is horrible because we all say horrible shit.
Right.
We all say horrible shit.
Right.
And the fact is, I say it to a group of people who get the fact that that is not an accurate reflection of who I really am.
Right.
Because what I believe is this. What I say to my friends being fucking stupid and cunty, knowing that I'm being stupid and cunty, is perfectly fine.
Right.
It's if I go into the world and behave in that way and actually act as if I think that's true, or if I think that that is factual, that's what makes me a horrible person.
Exactly.
Like, I believe in, like, people can say anything they want, but it's their actions that really tell the truth.
Exactly.
And so in this situation, it's about horrible shit I'm saying, but it could be used the flip side. How many times have we all known that person who said all the perfect things, did all the perfect things, like, what they were telling you was fucking hook, line, and sinker. You took the bait, and then you found out that they were a complete fraud by their actions.
Right. They're a Republican trying to get rid of gay laws. All of a sudden, they get caught in a men's bathroom trying to suck a dick.
Well, I mean, those are the kind of things, or like something that's not even that massive. You guys, I recently went through a situation that was a real emotional setback for me because I met this person online. We started chatting online. Then we moved. He was from a foreign country, so of course he was fucking so hot. Like, I mean, like good
European
dick,
or
good dick and Central American. Yes, thank you. Good and like accent and cute and like all these things.
Right.
Of course, I was, and we graduated from like texting or whatever, and then we were doing video chats every day, like multiple times a day, like hours. And I felt like we were boyfriends, you know, like I felt like I was dating him. And then he came to visit me, and within like a very short period of time, like what had been said was not matching up with what was being done. And like then the behaviors all of a sudden was like, oh my God, this was like, so my point is like, you can say anything you want, but how do you really act?
Right.
Like, I'll say something to my friends that's just simply for a punchline.
Right.
And it's not my, like, I'm a comedian at heart, and it's not really how I live my life.
Right.
You know, I will say things because I recognize they're absurd.
Right.
And I will say a lot of things just for a shock.
Just
for a shock.
Exactly.
And it's not, and just to be very clear, 9 times out of 10, if you ever were to hear me do a stand-up or you ever see me do a stand-up, I will say things about myself that are absolutely not true just because it's fucking funny. So, but back to, to the idea of being like not wanting to be caught, like, if you take my words out of context, you're much more likely to catch me in something that would be embarrassing to me than you will in my actions, because I'm really very poignant about my actions, and like my actions reflect who I really believe I am. Like, words are so easy. Like, I like if it's a written word or something like that, I'm really pretty conscientious about that because it's written. But if it's just like a fucking comment in a stand-up routine or something that's said privately to my best friends who are equally horrible people, like that's different. But I don't want to be caught in that. I don't want the rug to be pulled out from under me. I don't want to have presented something that I can't live up to later on. And then, maybe I'm presenting some shit privately that I'll never live down later on. But the fact is, I do not carry myself in the world that way.
I even have tried to start, I don't know, and I've made fun of, and I'm a hypocrite because I've made fun of these types of people on Facebook or otherwise before.
Oh, no, he's a hypocrite. He doesn't like Wonder Woman. He doesn't like pink.
But it's a thick penis. Anyway,
it better be extremely thick.
But one of the things that I even did yesterday is tried to start letting people, even through the podcast, because I'm outrageous and I say crazy shit and I talk all kinds of dumb opinions, but I even have started to talk about some of the spiritual lessons I've been learning. I posted yesterday some thing I visited with my mom, and I just felt this we had this amazing conversation. I got to talk a lot about self-care and self-love, and that's like, I normally say that to me 2 years ago, I would have been fuck you. But I was like, I keep getting this message about self-acceptance and self-love, and I think you guys are right. And even though that doesn't fit in my social media character, I don't want to be fucking in any one social media any character at all. I want to, because I think we're all so many facets to all of us. I want to be able to share about spiritual shit. I want to be able to talk about race. I want to be able to have it all. You know what I mean? And maybe that's ego. I don't know. But I want to be able to, you know what I'm saying?
The ego is saying he's got a thick dick, but I mean,
that's just the truth.
Y'all, before the end of this, before he leaves this house, I'm going to be like, drop the fucking drawers. show that chorizo, Peter Feliciano. Like, I want to see Feliciano's Peter, and then, but do you want to know something that's interesting? I was thinking about this. So I've touched on this record thing, that, a little bit. That backstory is that quite shocking to me, probably more than is anybody else, is that about 3 weeks ago, I got signed to this boutique dance music label.
That's awesome.
And the backstory of that is, and then I'll bring it up to what I was like, how it ties into this, because you're like, this bitch fucking wanders. No, I don't. I actually have a method to my madness. It's just not linear. So I had contributed guest vocals on a dance track about 4 years ago. It was called #White Lady Problems. Nice. And what the whole song was about, it was me doing different character voices, basically saying ridiculous shit that not just white women, but a very specific kind of white woman talks. Oh my God, what do you mean this parking meter doesn't take American Express?
Right, exactly.
Like, like my nail appointment ran long and now I miss my cat's therapy appointment. Whatever bullshit. Right. And this particular dance label promoted that track, and they found it really kitschy and really fun, and it fit into like a genre of dance music, which is the ultra gay dance music, which for a long time existed for a long time, and then it fell away. And people like Todrick Hall, to his credit, totally are filling that void right now. But they had been pursuing me for 3 years. They wanted something new. And as it turned out, during one of my overly accessible Facebook Live videos, the person who is behind this whole thing, her name is Barbara Sobel, was like, I'm still trying to get new music from you. And it just so happened that day, at that moment, I felt like there was time on my schedule to revisit this. And I've been telling her for 3 years, I just don't have time. I'm doing other shit.
Right.
And so I contacted her that night, sent her a track that's actually, if I'm truth be told, like 3 years old. But it's really good. I like it a lot, and it was well produced, and there's a small remix package already to it.
Oh.
And it had just never been properly promoted because I did not have the accessibility and the bandwidth to do that.
Right.
So she's like, we will take this, we will sign you to more. And what the particular record deal that I have looks like, and I want to put this out there because a lot of people do not understand what a record deal looks like. Most record deals, if you hear an artist say, like, I got $1 million record deal, what that means is that there's a label that's going to give you $1 million. The intention of that is that you can spend it however you want. It's supposed to go towards your music production, promotion, release.
Right.
And then once you've put that music out, you are supposed to recoup that cost, pay them back, and then anything after that becomes yours until they do this again.
And they get a percentage too.
They'll get a small percentage, but for the most part, the way most record deals work is all of the music release and all of that goes to pay back whatever you're fronted.
Okay.
And then how you end up making your money as an artist is by touring opportunities. So that's why so many artists want a pop radio hit, because they want to be able to pack the arena or pack the house so that they get that ticket money, because they're going to get a far greater percentage of a ticket sale than they will a music sale or download. So in my case, there's none of that upfront money, but what this production company has signed me to is that I provide them either vocals or lyrics or whatever, or in my case, I'm providing them some fully produced songs. And then they will, because it's dance music, they are going to upfront pay for all the production costs for 15 remixes. They will take care of all the release of it. It's going to go out to all the Warner Brother places. They're taking care of all of that. Then they do the promotion. All of this is stuff that I, as an independent artist, without this deal, would have to pay for personally. Right. And to work with lesser known DJs or producers, it can be like around $1,000 to $2,000, maybe even $3,000 for a good remix. Right. So if they're willing to put out an EP with one song remixed 15 times, we're talking like that's the equivalent of giving me $10,000, because if I had to pay for that out of pocket, plus all of the release and the promotion, which I would have to pay for. And Barbara is amazing at this. Barbara actually was just named the Queen Mother of Music Promotion by Just Circuit magazine, which is one of the like definitive magazines of dance music. Awesome. So I have been signed to this company. Well, it was a shock to me, but now bring it back to the current thing about the whole idea of accessibility and over accessibility. One of the tracks the next track that's going to be coming out, the first one is already done. But the second one is about that concept of people thinking that they know me and thinking and basing it only on one aspect of what they've seen of me. And so one of the things I like in music is when there's a kind of a twist where it's like you're presenting one way and then all of a sudden you present like a reality check for the people. Right. And that's what that White Lady Problems thing was about too. Like where I'm doing all this bullshit and then at the bridge it's like, listen, bitches, nobody cares about your petty fucking luxury issues. Right. Get over yourself type of thing. Right. Well, in this, it's presenting the image that people expect and then flipping it on its head where it's like, that's not really what I'm about. Like this is really what's going on with me and this is who I am. And it's kind of like to some degree it's about like that's why you've got haters, except for the fact that I'm really addressing people who feel overly attached to that image that they have of me, because when any of us have expectations of who somebody else should be, right, it becomes super limiting. It's very limiting for that person. And actually in the track, and this doesn't happen to me very often, but it's happened often enough where I say like, you think because you've seen me that you know me. You think because we've met that we're friends. You think you know who I am. You think you know where I stand. You think that you know my plan. Right. And you have a say in my plan. Right. But you don't. Like this is, as an audience member, I have the ability to just not purchase somebody's shit if I don't like it. If I don't like what they're about, I don't have to support it. And that's the way people get to speak, but you don't get to like bitch and moan and like try to
Right.
force somebody to be something that
Right.
you think they are, but they may never have been to begin with.
Right.
It's your perception,
Right.
you know? So, it's funny that you had mentioned that to me earlier, because I'm like, well, interestingly enough, that's literally the subject matter that I've been thinking about repeatedly, because, and the more ironic part is, I don't think that that's not really directed at any of the people who I think support my drag career. It's about people in my day-to-day life who, like, you know, I literally, in this song, I say, I answer to God and my mama.
Right.
You know, after that, if you're not one of those two,
Right.
you don't have a say in this, because I live for me.
Right.
And, but it's been something I have been thinking about, because when you choose a life as a performer and it has any level of success, and there are people who really feel invested in you, all of a sudden they think that this is not a democracy, you know,
Right.
like you don't get to, it's not going up on a Facebook or Twitter
Right.
poll.
Right.
Like, you know, am I going to be a redhead?
Right.
You know,
Right.
vote now.
Right.
You know, no, it's not, you know.
And
no.
I think that's actually, it's not just a great sentiment and a great way for you to express yourself. It's also, I think, from, obviously I haven't heard the track, but from what you've talked about it, I think that's actually more, that wets people's whistles more, because it's like, I'm going this way, whether you're in the car or not, fucking great, or I don't care. Either way, that makes people go, oh shit, like I'm missing out on something, instead of like, oh, like me. It doesn't have a desperation to it. It has a, this is who the fuck I am, you know, suck it, in a way. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that a big part of it really is, like, you know, again, tying all this shit together. Like, Robin S. literally said, like, I can't do, I mean, she can, and she obviously has, show me love for the rest of my life. Like,
Right.
there's more to me than that.
Right.
And you're not a real fan. You're not a real supporter if that's all you want from me, because you absolutely don't give a fuck about any other part of what
Right.
the person I am, or what I'm capable of.
Right.
You know, and I think that the message there really kind of becomes universal, because you know, we see it in our daily lives, all of us, when we go out into the world, and people only want to relate to, you know, the who you are at work. Like,
Right.
that's, you know, and you have to be something that does not offer you the freedom to be anything more than that. Or, you know, there's a lot of things that I think that people, you know, it's funny how people can find universal threads in a song that literally otherwise they can't even relate to.
Right.
You know, I'm sure that people will not be able to relate to some of what the lyrical content is, because that's not their life. But when it comes down to, like, the idea that, oh my God, like, this bitch, like, you know, paints on a face and goes into the world and people think she's XYZ. But you, like, when you paint your face in the morning, ladies, and go to the office, you're presenting something that you're not. And
Right.
and would you be with a partner who you have to wake up 2 hours before he does so you can do makeup and be laying there, like, pretending that you're flawless and
Right.
don't have pores or whatever?
Right.
No, like, that's a really universal theme, that idea
is.
that I have to live for me first. And if you want to support me living for me, fantastic. If you don't, then only the people who are really important to me get any kind of say in that. And I'll tell you, just as an FYI, even though I say the only people I answer to are God and my mom, even my mom has a very limited say in this, because I'm sure, like, there's been numerous times where my mom is like, must you?
Right.
Must
Right.
you?
Right.
And the
Right.
answer is
Right.
yeah, because
Yeah,
I
exactly.
must. Like, yes, Mom, I must.
Right.
And she's like, oh, you know,
Right.
God for, you know, at some point she's like kicking herself. She's like, I raised a strong-willed individual who really I taught to be authentic and true to himself, and now I have to fucking deal with the aftermath shit.
In some ways, and we should start wrapping up, but in some ways, I think it goes back to this idea that I was told a long time ago. I'd rather say something and be wrong than not say anything and be right. The idea that, like, you know what, if I make an artistic decision, it turns out to be, if I look back on it 2 or 3 years later or sooner and go like, that was a little, I understand, and it'll help me grow. But I don't want to hold my tongue for the sake of I might, because honestly, if I took a fucking poll of everybody, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? I would get 18 million different opinions in different directions. When I'm true to myself, suddenly people who honestly, this show and this album is part of it, and the album release party was part of it. Is that I just go forward, and people have shown up, sent me reviews that I didn't think would ever listen to it, that I haven't talked to in fucking years. Even a gal hit me up last night who I kind of like made a move on a few years ago, and it didn't go anywhere.
Wasn't that thick,
and then
but I really liked the album.
No, we didn't fuck. We didn't.
Oh my God.
But like
you said
I
the dick was thick, and you told me the album was good. One of them is pretty okay, accurate.
Shit.
I like the album.
But like all of a sudden, she sent me a message last night. I really like it, and not only did she send me a message saying I really like it, she said I sent your song to my friend who represents a few. I'm like, oh, okay, shit. So like when I'm true to myself, I'll be pleasantly surprised. I'd rather be pleasantly surprised than desperately trying to make sure everybody's happy.
Right. There is that age-old sentiment and saying that the only time you fail is when you don't try.
Right.
And really, I believe in a lot of ways. I believe in doing what feels right in the moment. Mm-hmm. Because if it feels right in the moment, unless there's like dire consequences on the other side of that decision, very few things in life are irreversible.
Right.
And especially when it comes to artistic decisions and direction, like, unless you have something that's so profound that it becomes career defining, life defining, unless it's your show me love, like it will not presumably hold up for an eternity anyway to be held against you.
Right.
More often than not, something only really gets remembered if it was extremely impactful. Things that were, there's certain people who will love to bring up failures and whatever. And actually, I was just thinking about that idea earlier today. Like, I was like, I don't like to be the one who predicts somebody's failure. It came up because a friend of mine asked about a situation. We have an acquaintance who is constantly losing their job, and like we're like, how long do you think this is going to last? I'm like, well, I don't want to predict failure, but based on experience, like I have an opinion.
Right.
But in general, like most people don't do that. Most people like want to see you succeed. More people want to see you succeed than not. And the other thing I believe is that when you want something bad enough, there's a quote from Paulo Coelho, who is a Brazilian author, my favorite book, The Alchemist. His quote is, when you want something badly enough, the entire universe conspires to bring it to you and make it happen. And I think that that's the case. Like, I think that for me, that's been absolutely my career-long experience. I love things. Sometimes it's stuff that everybody else loves, and I just love it so much that it sort of somehow materializes it. Or there's sometimes when it's stuff that only I really love, and I love it so much that it pulls it into my life. And I have a string of professional situations which would support that. Right. And mostly professional, because my all the things that I love creatively somehow, some way tie into my career. But I really think that that's the case, and I don't think that there is something that any of us could really do for the most part
to really mess it up
artistically that's going to ruin everything.
Right.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I before we wrap up, I just wanted to say again, and I know I'm moving to New York and whatever, but like I appreciate your friendship and
you're moving to New York.
Things. Yeah, that's why I'm doing this.
Oh my God, I had no idea.
In a week.
Oh my God, you're moving in a week?
Yeah. I'm
Holy
going for
fuck. Listen, New Yorkers, an allegedly thick dick is coming your way. Yes. Yes, come on.
I love my podcast. God damn it. I love doing this. Man. But yeah, I'm going out there to really give it my everything. I don't want to be in especially in my genre, San Francisco is just not the place to be. You know what I mean? Like I got to be in a big pond, and it's going to be scary, and there's going to be competition, and it's going to be whatever. Shit's going to be fucking great though. And I just need to be around it. So
yeah, I admire that, and I envy it, because I will tell you that at my age now is not the time to move to New York. It's not the time to move to LA. But there's always been a part of me that has wondered what would have happened if I'd gone to New York when my friends went to New York. Because I moved here and my friends all went to New York. And I've always wondered that, or what would have happened if I'd gone to LA. I think that the thing that the city has afforded me is being a very big fish in a small pond. And, globally speaking, people look at San Francisco as a big pond, right, which is good because there's some clout that comes with that. But anybody who lives here knows that this is a very small pond.
Even for drag? I feel like it would be Mecca.
It's not. I think that the image that we have of our gay culture here. Oh, for fuck's sake! I should have let them put those boys down.
He was looking.
Just kidding.
He was
you
licking
guys.
the
Just
window too. By the way,
so,
a second ago.
No, I think that the image that people have of San Francisco being queer, the epicenter of queer culture, I would say that it's in decline. So, okay. And I think that from the inside out, I would agree that it's in decline. So, but at the same time, I'm 46, so I feel like for me to move somewhere, I wonder, sometimes I question whether I would even have the perseverance and grind.
Well,
but
I think you've earned that.
Yeah,
internally.
I do think that there's an element of it that where I would go somewhere and I've got enough clout that I'd probably be able to jump, hit the ground running.
Right.
It wouldn't be trying to push start your car from a dead stop uphill.
But you've also got great roots here. I don't have really artistically great roots here. Personally, absolutely, I'm going to miss so many fucking people. But as far as like, as an example, that Album Release Party was the first time I've played my original songs with a full band. First fucking time, and I've been doing it since 2012. You know what I mean? So as far as my roots, quote unquote, I can lose the wine bar gigs. It's fine. You know what I mean? Like,
do you know where you're going in New York?
The goal is Manhattan. Maybe Brooklyn, but most likely Manhattan. I know I'm going to stay with some family in Long Island for a month or two, and then get a little
Long Island?
job. Yes, sir.
The thick dick is coming.
I was born there originally. So, your cigarette's dead.
How dare you tell people I'm smoking
on
your podcast?
Do you want me to cut it out? I'll cut it out. But I have already a ton of people who I'm connected to out there, and I'm, going to hang out with and do shows with, and people have been crazy, like, oh, here, meet my friend, Facebook introduction, and blah, blah, blah. So I've got a community starting to build out there, and I know I'm good enough to hang, but it's going to be interesting. But I think if you wanted to go, you could build on the cloud that you have here and build on the roots you have here.
Well, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, when I was dating the dancer,
right?
The plan at that time was I was going to go bi-coastal. I was going to spend, because he lived there, I lived here, and I didn't want either one of us to have to completely uproot. And I was doing well enough financially that I felt that I could go and spend 2 weeks there and 2 weeks here, and make a go of it financially. And that was a really exciting prospect for me because, it's like putting your toe in the water, but not, uprooting completely. Also, folks, they will cart my dead carcass out of this overly stuffed apartment. Like, that they will find me like one of those hoarders just buried under a They'll be like, why does she have newspapers from 1987 in here? I'll be like, those were important to me, bitch. But they'll just that's how they're gonna find my dead
a mountain
carcass.
Of stilettos.
Yeah, exactly. Half eaten by some dog that I rescued or some bullshit. But yeah, I mean, it's something that's always, the thought has always excited me. And what I would be more likely to do is start, and I've intended to do this, to start to basically live here and then make trips back and forth, maybe to LA but the wonderful thing about the internet is that the whole world is connected. I sent music off to this record label is based in New York, and I sent music off, and I've got people in Texas and people in Chicago and people all over the world, the United States and possibly the world, Atlanta, working on this stuff. And so that does bring you closer, but I think that I would probably be more, I definitely think that I would be more artistically stimulated if I lived in New York City.
There's probably more drag competition too, huh?
Yeah, in a very specific kind of drag competition. But
are they as? Because they're not. I would assume that in the South, although I have seen Shirley Q Liquor and things like that.
Oh my God! Do not. Shirley Q. Liquor is not even a good example. As much as I know Shirley, and I think that Shirley's hilarious.
Right.
Shirley is like persona non grata in the world because she's was deemed racist in her presentation and all of what she does. But
but I mean, I just figure she's fucking hilarious. But like down in the South, it would be more pageant drag. Yes. San Francisco is much more like do whatever the fuck you want.
New York is that too.
Okay.
Yeah, New York is that too. But the whole world of drag has been revolutionized by Drag Race, and like now everybody thinks that for you to step out of the house in a wig, you have to be pageant ready, because that's really what the kind of presentation that they make on RuPaul's Drag Race, and that's not a reality that's necessarily doable. Like nobody goes out, to relate it to real life things. Like, there's a reason that there's a term called Sunday best. It's like you save it for that. Otherwise, you can go out and you can just be down for the party, and that's not always acceptable in drag anymore. Right. And but I just don't fucking care. Like, I have my own thing and I do my own thing. And again, going back to if you don't like it, don't like it.
And even deeper than that, just because you can be catty doesn't mean you can read a motherfucker on the spot. Just because you can be catty on a show, no offense to any of the girls or whatever who are doing Drag Race, whatever, but like doesn't mean you can hold your own. Like, you can hold your fucking own on a stage with a motherfucker saying something or whatever. You can boom. You know what I mean? Yeah, and that's a personality, right? That's a personality.
That's my real strength, honestly. Wow. So yeah, I did not realize, Peter, that you are moving. All the more reason that I'm going to see the dick before he goes. I just need to make sure. It's got to get a stamp of approval. Like, okay, this is ready for New York. Otherwise, I'm going to be like,
you need a very small stamp.
That's like that dick probably is best for Hoboken.
Oh no, not Hoboken.
Yeah, like
fucking Albany dick.
Yeah, you may want to stop by Albany. That would be fucking Glen Falls.
Oh no.
Glen Falls, somewhere maybe like off the beaten
Syracuse.
path.
I got Syracuse cock. That's what it is.
Oh God, I'm not sure that anybody would Syracuse you of having cock, but so yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I'm gonna be back next year, and I'm gonna visit and stuff, and maybe do a few shows. But in general, yeah, this is it. I'm going to go be big.
No fucking wonder, y'all. Pete shows up with a box of like basically trash that he alleges is drag. He's like, you might want this, and I was like, thank you. Oh my God, it's like Christmas came early.
Wigs. There's some nice wigs in there.
No, it's like Christmas.
More than once.
It's like Christmas came. Once is too many for some of those wigs.
Oh, no.
He's like, Christmas came early, Pete. Thanks. Oh my God, this is just like, what a windfall. I feel like I won the lotto.
I'll take them to the trash.
No, I'm like, I would never. I got fucking trash right outside the door. As soon as he leaves, this shit's out of here. But
oh my God.
No, I'm sure there's some poor unfortunate cross-dresser who's like, I would just love to wear this Halloween wig with that straw hat you gave me. Thank you.
The drags in need. That's what it is.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you. So what do you want to promote?
As I said, you guys, my first official release with this new record label is right now targeted towards Halloween time. So end of October, we're looking to have about 10 remixes. The song is going to be called Rule the World by Pollo Del Mar featuring Carly Ozard. Carly's amazing. You might have an opportunity to meet her because she's in New York too. She's New York based and she came from here as well. And that's going to be on Sobel Promotions. I'm looking forward to that. We're even looking to possibly film a music video, but Pete, that's a ordeal. Yeah. So trying to wrangle that shit. But that's going to be the first official release, so they can just stay updated on that and look for it. Pollo Del Mar featuring Carla Ozard, Rule the World. And then follow me on Instagram and all my social media, because that's the easiest way to really keep up with what I'm doing. I've got pro wrestling gigs coming up on October 3rd here in San Francisco. That's a Thursday night. And I've been doing a lot more of the pro wrestling bullshit.
Yeah.
I just did 2 wrestling shows this past weekend, Saturday and Sunday, one in Sacramento and one here. Music, I'm writing, and really my life is very good at the moment. Sometimes that inner saboteur gets to me and I'm like, this is going too well. Yeah. But fortunately, my love life and sex life sucks. So it's like
you're not distracted.
My point is that like if I was like getting the good dick on a regular and like had money in the bank and like being creative, that's when I would for sure be like the bottom's about to fall out of this.
Right.
And trust me, when I say the bottom's about to fall out, that shit's already fallen out, and I stuffed it back in a couple times.
Like a loose goose, like a turkey.
Oh my! Thank you.
Like a Thanksgiving turkey.
Fucking
the innards.
Absolutely. The prolapse is just dangling like a fucking pendulum. It's like I walk around, and by the shadow of the prolapse, you can tell the time of day. It's like a fucking sundial.
Groundhog Day.
It's like a sundial, bitch. So it's like, oh, it must be 3:30. Look at that. The shadow's off to the east.
It's leaking.
Oh God. He's being ridiculous. My prolapse has never leaked.
I'm sorry.
You're right. You're right. Zip tie from the dollar store can really hold that in. You can just. Oh my God.
Wonderful. God damn it. Oh. Life is beautiful.
It is. And if you can't afford that, girl, just buy a loaf of bread and use a twist tie, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. It's so cheap.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me again.
And if you want to support my music and podcast, you can go to patreon.com/conservatish. Just go buy my album. It's on iTunes. It's on CD Baby. It's on Amazon, Spotify, Google Play, fucking everywhere. Yes. So go just listen to it. That's the most important thing. And then you can follow me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano. And I'll be updating you guys with new episodes more this next few weeks because I want to show you guys the travel and the Airbnbs in Needles, California on the border of Arizona and weird shit like that. So, wow. And also you can Venmo me if you want to at Peter-Feliciano. I'm fucking...
Yeah, y'all send him some cash. Yeah. For every $20 contribution to his Venmo, he will send one suggestive photo of the allegedly thick dick,
right,
as shown through a presumably stained pair of Fruit of the Loom.
Right.
Okay.
Or maybe like it might be a Comcast remote inside of basketball shorts, but something. I'll send something.
So he'll send. Yeah. Don't expect much, y'all. Hoboken-Dick, bitch.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, Pollo Del Mar. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. Bye. Awesome. Fucking wonderful.